Hello and welcome to this edition of the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Carrie Hazley, Chief of the Emergency Services and Multimedia Branch for the National Weather Service in Anchorage. Today is Wednesday, September 30th, 2020, the last day of the month of September, and an active September and an active day it has been weather-wise. So let's start by taking a look first at ways you can get a hold of us if you are looking for weather information. The first, the Alaska Weather Information Line. Give us a call at the number there on your screen. It's 1-800-472-0391. That takes you a menu system, and then from there you can select the area that you are interested in weather information. You can always find us on the web, weather.gov/Alaska, and then you can also email me anytime. I'd love to hear from you and hear what weather and water occurrences are going on in the area where you are. My address is carrie.hazley@noaa.gov. Now, as far as weather goes, we are dealing with a very active weather pattern, very September-like, very fall-like indeed. And so with that, we do have some wind advisories that are out, and we'll go through these one by one here. So the first one we'll look at is the one that includes Bettles there on your map. That particular wind advisory is valid until midnight tonight, and we're looking for east winds along the Dalton Highway there, 20 to 30 miles per hour, with gusts up to about 40 miles per hour there. So you'll definitely want to make sure if you're towing a high-profile vehicle that you're aware of those winds and taking all the precautions that you possibly can. Now, down along the Alaska Range, we also have a wind advisory out. It stretches from the McGrath area all the way over towards Northway and includes Big Delta there. And with that, we are looking for winds to gust up to about 65 miles per hour, maybe a little bit stronger through some of those passes. And with that, we do expect those winds to pick up this afternoon, continue through the overnight hours, and then taper off when we get into the middle of the day tomorrow. However, we expect those winds to pick up again for Friday through the Alaska Range. So we're only going to get a very brief break. So this particular advisory is valid until 1 p.m. on Thursday, and we'll definitely want to keep our eyes out tomorrow for an additional advisory to cover the winds going into Friday. Now, there are a few other products in effect. We don't typically put special weather statements on this map, but there are several of them out. So let's work through those very quickly, starting with a look at a special weather statement around Kodiak Island. So this one was issued today, and it focuses on heavy rain at the Kodiak Island area, and they're continuing through the week, where we're looking for another 3 to 4 inches of rain continuing through the week and into the start of the weekend. So that increases flooding potential, and it also increases the threat for mudslides along some of the slopes there. We have another special weather statement out for the Seward area, and we're looking for the potential for flooding, particularly as we go into the day tomorrow and into the day on Friday, with this very active weather pattern again that we're dealing with. 4 to 7 inches of snow forecast in the Seward area by Saturday morning. We don't currently have any flood advisories as of the time I'm recording this, although you'll certainly want to check the website if that is an area that you are concerned about, as we certainly are watching that area for flooding potential very closely. And lastly, we do have one more special weather statement out. I told you there was a lot going on here. Strong wind across Turnagain Arm and the Anchorage Bowl this evening and continuing all the way into Thursday night, not reaching advisory criteria for the Turnagain Arm, which is a very windy place, but certainly very strong wind expected with gusts 60 to 75 miles per hour along Turnagain Arm and higher elevations this evening, weakening a bit as we get into the day on Thursday. So one quick look here at the wind advisory across the Alaska Range. Just to break it down a little bit, so this is one of the graphics that our Fairbanks team put out on their Facebook page. You can always find us on Facebook. Fairbanks, Juneau, and Anchorage offices all have their own page. So this one is highlighting the Alaska Range passes, looking for wind picking up this evening, continuing through Thursday afternoon with those gusts up to about 65 miles per hour. The Delta Junction area looks like it's going to pick up the majority of the wind with Isabel Pass up to about 65 miles per hour. and also windy pass there along the Parks Highway, dealing with those very gusty winds. So a quick look at what is causing all of this. Taking a look at the satellite picture, there is a strong area of low pressure, and it is just to the south of Kodiak Island and working its way towards the Alaska Peninsula. We got a bit of a shift here in the satellite picture, I see. But with that, clouds spreading their way across much of mainland Alaska, some downslope conditions on the lee side of the Alaska Range, but we are seeing quite a bit in the way of precipitation associated with these clouds. Here's what that looks like on the surface chart. So that area of low pressure this afternoon is southwest of Kodiak Island. This is actually the same system we talked about on the show yesterday. The system hasn't moved very much, although the frontal boundaries associated with this have been pretty widespread and moving pretty quickly. Widespread rain, cloud cover, and definitely gusty winds are the story with this system. Also dealing with some fog up on the Arctic coast from this. So what does the future hold? Well, we already talked about wind advisories, and we talked about quite a bit in the way of heavy rain. That is definitely the story. So at the surface, we see that area of low pressure work its way towards the Bristol Bay area overnight. And then we see the pressure gradient tightening a bit over parts of Kodiak Island and the Kenai Peninsula, as well as along the Gulf Coast and up eventually over the Alaska Range as this frontal boundary lifts through them. That's what picks up our wind, and then we also see rain continuing to spread its way back into places that have dried out just a bit today. So through the overnight hours, we also look for fog to linger up on the Arctic coast, and also for some snow or maybe just a rain-snow mix working its way towards the Arctic coast there as well. Widespread showers over much of the state. Now into the day on Thursday, we see the system that's currently causing our weather start to weaken, but another system is developing right behind it. High pressure will dominate the weather for a brief period of time over the Panhandle for the day on Thursday, so they will see some improving conditions going through the day, but mainland Alaska just doesn't get a break. We're going to be dealing with rain, we're going to be dealing with gusty winds, and that's just going to be the story with this pattern as long as these storms stick around. We see a trough of low pressure work its way towards the Arctic coast tomorrow. That's going to increase the threat for wintry precipitation up along the Arctic coast as well as parts of the Brooks Range. And then through the day on Friday, the Arctic coast will warm a bit, so some of that snow or rain-snow mix that they could see should change over to precipitation in the form of rain. Now that area of low pressure that developed right behind the one we're dealing with now is going to develop into a pretty strong system, 974 millibars by the time we get into the day on Friday. So while we'll see winds taper off briefly on Thursday between these two systems, we do see the winds pick right back up on Friday across Kodiak, South Central, the coastal areas, as well as all of the terrain, including the Alaska Range, with wet weather definitely persisting most places. Another cold front works its way into southeast Alaska for the day on Friday, so even though they get a brief break on Thursday, rain is coming right back. Now a quick look at temperatures across the state for low temperatures tomorrow morning. We do see some areas dipping down to temperatures below freezing. For the day on Thursday, we look for Anatuvik Pass to drop down to 29 degrees tonight, Arctic Village at 28. And then all along the Arctic coast, we see temperatures in either the upper 20s or the low 30s, but hovering just below freezing. We'll also see temperatures through much of the interior get into the 30s, although we stood say just above freezing. South Central Alaska overnight tonight into the 40s, and then Southwest Alaska into the 40s as well. So a quick read on some of these: 47 at Bethel, Galena 41 for the overnight hours, Fort Yukon down to 35. And then down in the Panhandle, temperatures tonight get into the 40s. So Sitka at 49, Ketchikan at 50, and then out the Aleutians temperatures in the 40s. For the day tomorrow, we actually have some 60s on the map, which is pretty remarkable, seeing as how tomorrow is the first day of October. Not record-breaking temperatures, but very close. So Fairbanks has a high of 61 tomorrow, and then down in the southern part of the Panhandle, Lynette, Ketchikan, you guys should get into the low 60s. Across most of the rest of the state, we do see temperatures get into the 50s for the day on Thursday. The exception is really going to be the Brooks Range and the Arctic coast, where we're going to be dealing with that wintry mixed type precipitation, but daytime highs should get above freezing everywhere up there, including a 36 at Utqiagvik and a 35 over at Barter Island. For Friday morning, we do see some temperatures again get below freezing. Arctic Village down to 26, Dead Horse down to 29, and then some temperatures right at freezing up on the Arctic coast. And again, as we see that precipitation move in, we're going to be dealing with a bit of a wintry mix with temperatures like this through the overnight hours. And as far as Friday is concerned, we'll look for high temperatures again to break 60 around Fairbanks and also in the southern part of the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And welcome back. Now let's take a look at flying weather conditions across the state for Thursday morning, starting off with a look at the Arctic coast where we see widespread IFR conditions. This is a result of precipitation moving into the area, kicking fog that's been in there for the last few days out and bringing ceilings and visibilities down with some rain and snow. We also look for some IFR conditions to develop out along the Gulf Coast, stretching into the northern part of the Panhandle. Also some IFR conditions along the Alaska Range for Thursday morning, and then widespread marginal VFR across most of southern and western mainland Alaska. IFR conditions down over the Panhandle to kick off Thursday morning, but by Thursday afternoon, we do see significant improvement over the Panhandle as a frontal boundary that moved through the area moves out and high pressure builds back in temporarily. For Thursday afternoon, we do see that IFR linger up over the Arctic coast. Also some IFR push its way into the Brooks Range, spreading with it some precipitation when it does so. Also IFR conditions around the Kodiak Island area by Thursday afternoon, and IFR conditions for the eastern Kenai Peninsula as well as up over the Alaska Range, and some IFR conditions out over the Bering. Again, widespread marginal VFR conditions stick around for most of mainland Alaska, at least along the coastal areas. For Friday morning, IFR conditions stick around on the Arctic coast, precipitation sticking around there as well, and then IFR conditions along the Alaska Peninsula, the eastern Kenai Peninsula, and the Prince William Sound area. The Panhandle starts off the day at VFR conditions in most places. We do see some deteriorating conditions by Friday morning across the southern Panhandle, and then marginal VFR over a lot of southwestern mainland Alaska. By Friday afternoon, the Panhandle does deteriorate quite a bit as a cold frontal boundary pushes its way across the Panhandle area by Friday. And with that, Friday afternoon, IFR conditions for the southern Panhandle stretching its way up into the northern part of the Panhandle, at least for the interior channels there. And then IFR conditions over the Alaska Range, Prince William Sound, the eastern Kenai Peninsula, and also IFR conditions on Friday working their way into the northern Seward Peninsula area. Marginal VFR still sticks around southwestern and south central mainland. For passes and Atuvik Pass, you're going to start the day at VFR. Precipitation moves in, drops you to marginal VFR by afternoon time frame. And Atuvik, Adigan, you're going to drop from VFR to IFR as we go through the day on Thursday. Now down to the Alaska Range, Lake Clark Pass at marginal VFR, IFR conditions expected for Merrill, and also IFR conditions expected for Rainy Pass. Over towards Windy Pass, marginal VFR, and then continuing around to the Alaska Range. Isabel, you should stay at VFR conditions for Thursday, although very gusty winds through that pass. Mentasta also VFR, and then down to Tanita, marginal VFR improving to VFR. Portage will stay IFR all day for Thursday. Down to the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will start the day at IFR, and then we do see good improvement for the Panhandle, taking those passes back up to VFR by afternoon time frame. For freezing levels across most of mainland Alaska, we do see freezing levels up pretty high, 6,000 to 8,000 feet. That's resulting in some near record high temperatures across parts of the interior. That said, we do have a freezing level line that is dropping, the surface line dropping below the Brooks Range as we get into the overnight and morning hours, and then shifting back to north of the Brooks Range once we get into the afternoon time frame. Panhandle area, you see freezing levels ranging from about 6,000 feet in the north to 12,000 feet in the south, and that again resulting in some near record high temperatures for the Panhandle as well. For icing, we do have a large area where isolated moderate ice is expected across a lot of mainland Alaska. This there due to widespread precipitation expected in the area. As far as considerable moderate goes, the Bering Strait is one place where we are expecting that tomorrow. The other places include the Alaska Range, the Killbuck Mountains, the eastern Kenai Peninsula, and then a lot of Prince William Sound, as well as the Kodiak Island and Shelikof Strait areas. For winds, we do see a jet stream pattern push its way into the far western part of the Aleutians, peaking out at about 125 knots, and another jet pushing its way into the southern part of mainland around Kodiak Island peaks out at 30,000 feet at about 125 knots, continues to push southwestward into mainland Alaska, dropping down to 9,000 feet. Strongest winds are in the southern part of mainland, 50 to 60 knots, and then over the 3,000 foot area, strongest winds are going to be out over southwestern mainland, peaking out at about 45 knots out of the southeast. For turbulence, we are expecting a large area of considerable moderate over most of mainland Alaska for the day on Thursday. Also some isolated moderate around that, some isolated moderate out on the Aleutians. Heights most places 4,000 feet, a bit higher over the Chugach in south central Alaska.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the stratus starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And welcome back from the break. Now let's start by taking a look at conditions for marine weather across the state. Starting off with a look at the most recent sea ice analysis. This analysis completed yesterday afternoon, where we do still see a very ice-free Chukchi Sea, and then over the Beaufort Sea, a different story entirely, where we do have an area of multi-year ice, greater than 80% concentration over most of the Beaufort, although all of that ice still offshore at this point in time. Now, going through the rest of the week and into the start of the weekend, we will see a little bit more retreat of the ice edge. Now, Arctic-wide, we should be growing new ice. We just have a good bit of warm air with all of the active weather we've had across Alaska getting pushed into the Arctic, and that's why we're seeing some retreat in the ice edge. For winds and waves, starting with a look at the Panhandle interior waters for Thursday morning, we do see winds between 5 and 15 knots, strongest over Lynn Canal, and then seas ranging from 2 to 4 feet. Different story out over the Gulf of Alaska, where winds primarily out of the southeast are up to about 20 knots. And in the western part of the Gulf and northern part of the Gulf, we do see seas up into the teens, 14 feet there around Middleton Island. By Friday afternoon, we do see quite a bit of an increase in winds and waves. We see some of our waves getting up into the 20-foot range over the Gulf. Over the Panhandle, we see another frontal boundary that pushes its way in on Friday, but as far as winds go, we should still be dealing with pretty light winds over the marine areas, up to about 10 knots out of the south and seas 2 to 3 feet. For south central Alaska now, the place of interest looks to me like the northern part of the Gulf, as well as the southern part of Cook Inlet, where we see winds between 35 and 40 knots for the day on Thursday and seas ranging from 16 to 18 feet, increasing as we get into the day on Friday. Winds out of the southeast picking up to between 45 and 50 knots. Some places, the mouth of Cook Inlet up to 50 knots, and seas over the mouth of Cook Inlet at 15 feet. That is certainly substantial for that area. And then 25 feet once you get to the waters just east of Kodiak Island, stretching around into the northern part of the Gulf. For Thursday, down towards Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula, we get a little bit of a break, at least in some of our sea heights compared to what we've seen over the last few days, but still up in the teens, up to about 18 feet, winds around 45 knots. And then we see an increase in the waves by the time we get into Friday, up into about 25 knots just east of 25 feet just east of Kodiak Island, and then winds picking up around the Kodiak Island area to about 40 knots. Slightly weaker conditions on the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula, but still 12 foot and 35 knots for the seas there just off of Cold Bay. Out the Aleutian chain, better conditions where we do see at least single digits for most of the sea heights Thursday, and then winds up to about 20 knots with a westerly component. Not much change in the far western Aleutians as we get into the day on Friday. Up the west coast now for Thursday, we see most of our winds primarily out of the east, 20 to 25 knots, and then seas up to about 5 feet, 7 feet once you get closer to St. Lawrence Island. And then for the day on Friday, we see the winds shift around to the northeast, up to about 25 knots, some increase in the seas, especially out over the more open waters, closer to St. Matthew Island, up to about 10 feet. And up to the Arctic coast, easterly winds, 30 knots, with seas between 8 and 10 feet for Thursday. Also easterly winds further around the coast there on the west side of mainland, with seas up to about 9 feet near the Cape Lisburne area. Not much change for the day on Friday. Some of the winds do drop off a bit though, so we see them up to about 20 knots, seas 4 to 6 feet. And then closer to the the northwestern part of mainland there, 20 feet, 20 knots, and those seas 4 to 5 feet. And then finally, let's take a quick recap at the pattern across the state, where we have an area of low pressure along the Alaska Peninsula tonight. Strong system still spreading widespread gusty winds and rain across south central, southwestern, and even the northern part of southeast mainland Alaska. We see showers lingering along a lot of the west coast and in parts of the interior. Fog along the Arctic coast and some snow showers finally moving their way in there through the overnight hours. Tomorrow we kind of see one system break down and a new system move in. During that lull, high pressure will dominate the weather over the Panhandle, so we'll see clouds clear out there as we get into the latter part of the day. Showers, however, linger over much of western and southern mainland Alaska, as well as out the Aleutian chain. And then getting into the day on Friday, that active weather pattern really sticks around. That other area of low pressure that we start to see move in tomorrow gets up into mainland Alaska by Friday. Widespread rain and very gusty winds. Thank you.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.